I'm going to continue reading now from this pamphlet. This is part 3, Money and Wages. Here is the chart which will be referred to. This chart illustrates the relationship of employment and payrolls. A rising price level stimulating production and employment causes wages to fall below the rising cost of living. A falling price level depressing production and employment causes wages to fall even more pronouncedly than the prices. A stabilized price level with its economic security increases wealth production, houses, factories, etc., with the result of a declining interest yield of the capital invested, and raises wages at the expense of the interest yield. During the period of relative stabilization, from 1924 to 1929, wages rose to heights never known before, while the interest rate declined. The foundation of all economic life is work, and honest work requires a fair wage. Wages are now paid in money, but the money he receives is in itself no use to the wage earner. Its function is to assure him the commodities and services necessary for a living. Wages in money are but a connecting link. The aim of work is wages in commodities and services, real wages. Wages in money are but a connecting link. The aim of work is wages in commodities and services, real wages. To convert money, wages, into commodities, distributing traders are necessary, so wages in commodities are only assured if the worker can count on a fixed purchasing power for money. At present, 1919, he cannot do so. In every European country, the purchasing power of money is sinking from week to week, and the earners of wages or salaries are defrauded. Most of the sufferers hope for a gradual fall in prices, not knowing that a fall of prices inevitably leads to serious economic disturbances. A rapid fall of prices produces a sharp crisis. A gradual fall cripples industry and trade, perhaps for years. Prices can move smoothly only in one direction, like a ratchet wheel, which is broken if it is forced backwards. All this leads us to the problem of the currency, which is of vital importance to the earning classes. Just as disaster would result from the employment as engine driver of a man ignorant of the mechanism of a steam engine, so disaster results from the choice of the currency. And in this field, both orthodox financiers and socialist leaders are equally ignorant. They have both the same record of disastrous failure. Only when the earning classes have grasped the principles of currency administration can they hope to choose leaders really capable of achieving effective economic reforms. Only when the earning classes have grasped the principles of currency administration can they hope to choose leaders really capable of achieving effective economic reforms. It can easily be proved that the general level of prices depends on the management of the currency. The general level of prices in any country can be raised or lowered by the issue or withdrawal of paper money. In Figure 3, for example, we see the striking connection between the increased issue of paper money and the increase of prices in the United States. Here's that chart. In Figure 3, for example, we see the striking connection between the increased issue of paper money and the increase of prices in the United States. A similar diagram can be made from any other country. An increase of the amount of money in circulation is always followed by a rise of prices. By continuous issue of paper money or increase of credit money, prices can be raised to any desired degree, and by steady withdrawal of notes or the curtailment of credits, prices can be reduced until trade is at a standstill. But if the power given by the control of paper money is so great, it must also be possible to find the mean between these two extremes, that is, to issue just the quantity of currency required by the market to reach a stable condition in which prices as a whole neither rise nor fall. If prices neither rise nor fall, money has always the same purchasing power, or in other words, the currency is stabilized. The policy of the note-issuing banks during and after the war of arbitrarily increasing the amount of paper money in circulation has made such havoc of agreements between debtors and creditors, employers and wage earners, that the general uncertainty has depressed honest industry and given free play to speculators and usurers. The main cause of the dangerous discontent among the workers is the present unintelligent management of the currency. Many leading financiers declare that currency stabilization is impossible. In this, they are either themselves mistaken, or they wish to lead us astray. For the healthy currency system we advocate is not in the interest of many bank magnates and their friends. Many leading financiers declare that currency stabilization is impossible. In this, they are either themselves mistaken, or they wish to lead us astray. For the healthy currency system we advocate is not in the interest of many bank magnates and their friends. But this is no reason why we should remain slaves to the arbiters of finance. The Federal Reserve System during the period of 1923 to 1929 under Governor Strong has proved such stabilization is not only possible, but automatically results in generally favorable economic conditions. The Federal Reserve System during the period of 1923 to 1929 under Governor Strong has proved that such stabilization is not only possible, but automatically results in generally favorable economic conditions. USA experienced during this period of stabilization its incomparable period of prosperity, the Roaring Twenties. Great Britain, Sweden, and other countries, by leaving the price-declining gold standard and resorting to a stabilization of the general price level of the purchasing power of money, moved speedily and definitely out of the Depression to economic recovery and prosperity. The influence of the currency upon the economic life cannot be overemphasized. It is immense. Indeed, it is no exaggeration to say that history is determined by the currency, and certainly the interpretation of history is impossible without a knowledge of the laws of monetary science. It is no exaggeration to say that history is determined by the currency, And certainly the interpretation of history is impossible without a knowledge of the laws of monetary science. The downfall of the Roman Empire is still, for example, commonly ascribed to the incursions of the Teutonic invaders. Yet the decay of Rome was far advanced before these invaders set foot in Italy. The true cause of the downfall of Rome was pointed out by Sir Archibald Alison and other English economists in the first half of the last century. It is a well-known fact that the Spanish silver mines upon which Rome depended for its currency became exhausted about the time of Augustus. The result was a gradual fall of prices which paralyzed industry and commerce. As no other source of currency was discovered, this fall of prices continued all through the Middle Ages and put back the clock of progress 1,000 years. Only after the discovery of America, when gold and silver began to flow in from Mexico, was progress resumed and later intensified by the invention of paper money. Silvio Gesell, in his booklet Gold and Peace, showed that the Renaissance originated in the Italian cities which practiced base coinage on a large scale. The increase of the coinage arrested the fall of prices, made commerce and industry possible, and brought prosperity. For a thorough treatment of the currency question, the reader is referred to Gesell's The Natural Economic Order. Part 4. General Economic Crisis or Depressions. Kropotkin relates of the Kalmyks that when a quarrel ends in blows and wounds, the bystanders are punished as well as the aggressor for not intervening to separate the antagonists. On this principle, our banks ought to be punished when a general economic crisis occurs, for not only do they fail to intervene to prevent the crisis, but they actually hasten its outbreak and increase the injury of the hard-hit employees. Let us examine what happens at such times. With our present irrational monetary system, the fear of a crisis is often the cause of its outbreak. Some rumor, founded or unfounded, causes a panic on the stock exchange, resulting in a rapid sale of shares. The money is mostly hoarded or remains in the cellars of the banks. The experts announcing that idle money is accumulating in the banks. In this way, the amount of money in circulation is reduced, and prices consequently fall. The next to take alarm are the merchants. When prices are falling, merchants begin to buy less and to cancel orders. Many industries are still working overtime and piling up stocks under the influence of the previous wave of trade prosperity, which has, however, already come to an end. The manufacturers are accumulating produce, and the merchants are disinclined to buy. Two causes combine to produce the same effect. Prices fall still further. The factories are now full of produce for which there is no sale, so they must reduce their hours or close down. Unemployment and poverty spread among those who were destined to buy, and still wish to buy, the unsold goods. The factories are now full of produce for which there is no sale, so they must reduce their hours or close down. Unemployment and poverty spread among those who were destined to buy, and still wish to buy the unsold goods. Here is the produce, and there the need for it, yet no exchange takes place, and economic life is paralyzed. And the banks? If bank directors, especially directors of the state banks, or of the Federal Reserve System in the USA, were guided by monetary science, they could intervene vigorously and prevent the crisis. When a crisis threatens, the capitalists begin to call in terminable loans from their debtors, that is, from the employers. This happens just when the employer has no available money, for he has trusted the wave of prosperity and put everything into his business. He cannot convert his piled-up produce into money, for it is unsaleable. No one will buy produce which is bound to fall in price. The employer must therefore seek another loan from the bank, which knows that, to escape ruin, he must have the money at almost any cost. The employer must therefore seek another loan from the bank, which knows that, to escape ruin, he must have the money at almost any cost. The bank exploits his difficulty by demanding a high rate of interest, panic interest. As a private business concern, it cannot do otherwise, for its directors are bound to obtain the highest possible dividends for their shareholders. It is their duty to place the loan with the highest possible interest. The bank has also to allow for increased risk in times of crisis. As the Bank of England and the Federal Reserve Banks in USA, same as the state or national banks in other countries, are also unfortunately private companies, they act upon the same principle. When a crisis threatens, they raise their rate of interest. Yet to prevent the crisis, they should do the exact opposite. They should issue loans to the hard-pressed employers at a low rate of interest to increase the circulation of money and prevent the fall of prices. These should be short-term loans, for increased circulation of money after the crisis would raise prices contrary to the principle of currency stabilization. But altruistic action must not be expected from a private business company, so these state banks must, after receiving proper compensation, hand over the right of issuing notes to a government office for the regulation of currency. Such an office, with the stabilization of the currency as aim, could prevent all general economic crises by adopting the course of action we have described towards threatened employers. A crisis of depression is a fall of prices. A crisis or depression is a fall of prices. Whatever prevents the fall of prices prevents stagnation of sales, cessation of payments, and general unemployment. Whatever prevents the fall of prices prevents stagnation of sales, cessation of payments, and general unemployment. We warn the reader against attempting to refute our arguments by illustrations drawn from partial crises in limited spheres of production. A partial crisis has absolutely no connection with the currency. One objection has yet to be met. The reader will ask, how is the stabilized currency covered? But here, covering, gold, is superfluous, for money is better covered by its fixed purchasing power than by any metal money. If the purchasing power of money for the average commodities is fixed, money is completely covered by the stocks of commodities. If the purchasing power of money for the average commodities is fixed, money is completely covered by the stocks of commodities. Gesell well compares this stabilized paper currency with Galileo's astronomical system. Galileo's predecessor, Copernicus, had discovered all the important laws of planetary motion, but he could not free himself from the notion that in space there must be an above and a below. He was therefore bound to the theory that the planets roll on solid planes around the sun. Galileo freed mankind from this error. He grasped the fact that the sun and planets soar in space. The goal